To set the tone for the day, now I call upon stage our conference chairperson, Mr. Kanwaljit Singh, the founder and managing partner of Fireside Venture. Can we all have a round of applause to welcome the gentleman onto the dais to address the gathering? So today he's going to be talking to us about the innovative concepts, alternative commerce, and new business models. So here we have the gentleman forward.
It's a privilege and an honor to be here. I think this is the first session that I am attending in person after almost 2.5 years. And just the energy, the buzz is really invigorating. As venture investors, we are typically the back office boys. We support companies and founders. So it's a great honor to be in the presence of all of you who are really the buzz of the industry. I have a very short 20 minutes to talk about a few things that I thought might be useful for all of you. So what I'll do is I will just spend about 15 minutes in laying some kind of a framework, some kind of a broad construct around how the whole space of consumer brands, especially digital brands, has evolved in the last 10 years. And as investors, how we have seen it as a ringside view and where it's going from here. And I think the most interesting part of this session today is that we are sitting at the cusp of something very, very interesting. And I hope all of us can really leverage the opportunity and, of course, understand the nuances of what's going on, because there has been a meaningful disruption in the last 10 years. And if I have confidence to believe that it's going to get further disrupted even more significantly as we go forward. So basically, what my very quick summary of what is happening is really split into 3 phases over the last 10 years. And I have been fortunate to observe this very closely from the inside, having been an investor in the space. The first 5 years of this decade, 2010 to 15, is what we have called the challengers phase. This is the time when brands were born to cater to new audiences, to the younger generation. And they were doing things which were disruptive at the product level. And again, I'll go a little deeper into this over the course of the presentation. The last 5 years have been the real disruption. The concept of digital brands, the concept of new business models, which have allowed some of these brands like the Boats and the Wows and the Mama Earths to come up, has been really disrupting every aspect of the business. And where we go from here is really what I want to spend a little bit more time on, and hopefully leave some time in the end for some question and answers. And of course, comments from all of you on what you are seeing. There's an interesting track happening in the next hall, which is all about the metaverse and the Web3. So it's almost like a yin and yang. So we are talking about it, and they are actually exposing the insights on that. So let me start with just setting a little bit of a background of where we were 10 years ago. This is circa 2008, 9, 10. I was an investor in a fund called Helion, and we were investing in technology companies. And I started seeing this very interesting development where companies were starting to get built with the objective of offering very unique new product offerings to the consumers. And the intuition was that the consumer was starting to look for choices which their parents and their previous generation were not their preferred choices of consumption. So one of the examples that I have taken here is, again, I had the privilege to be involved from the day one, is a brand called Paperboard. And Paperboard was born in 2010. And the whole idea behind Paperboard was innovation around product, innovation around packaging format, and innovation around the whole narrative of how this is a drink for the Indian consumers. There was the whole concept of ethnic and nostalgia and memories. The business model did not really change. So this was still about distribution through the normal modern trade, through the normal general trade. This was still the idea of building it, one store and one city at a time. But they saw great success in the narrative, in the business opportunity. Companies like Epigamia, companies like ID Fresh, again, some of the brands that have really done well here. So if you look at the success model for these businesses, and these are fairly large businesses today, so it's obviously been a well-proven model. They were leveraging product through innovative new formats, and the distribution models remained as they were. What really changed in 2014-15 was what we call the emergence of the digital infrastructure. Now, this was the time when we started Fireside as a fund. And what's been the most exciting thing for us is this has questioned every brand building, every concept of consumer brands at a very fundamental level. So these are the brands we call disruptors. And these are the brands which we believe have laid the foundation of what is to come. So let me talk a little bit about this, and maybe I can take a few examples of how they have manifested themselves. First of all, on the product, these are brands which are built on what we are calling digital first. So there is also some interesting debate about what is D2C and what is digital first. So our definition is D2C and digital first are being used very interchangeably. So companies that are born on the net, brands that are digitally oriented is what we call digital first, or you can call them D2C, although technically D2C is direct to consumer, so it's about your own channel, it's about your own website and selling directly to consumers. But the interesting thing here is that the DNA of a company which is born on the net or digital first is really completely different from any traditional brand. I have worked with Hindustan Lever for 10 years. And I can tell you that the process we used to follow in launching a new brand would be a very elaborate, very thoughtful process. It takes about 1.5, 2 years to launch a new brand. So you research it, you do product development, then you research that, then you do advertising development, then you research that, and so on. That's not the DNA here. The companies here are essentially launch fast and fail fast. So the whole model here is you launch something, and again, you have people like Varun and Aman from Mamaearth and Boat later in the day. You can, chat with them about these principles. The number of SKUs, the number of products they launch on a monthly basis is phenomenal. It's scary from a traditional Hindustan Lever kind of a background person like me. But what happens there is that you have very transparent channels to understand what's happening to your brands. So you have ratings, you have reviews, you have customer feedback coming to you on a daily basis. And you can't hide behind mass advertising and not knowing what, as we used to call our consumer in levers, Kavita from Kanpur is thinking. Here, it's all upfront in your face. So that's the first disruption, that your research lab is the internet. So you create new products, you launch them, they don't work, you fail them. I think the best example here is Boat. 2.5 years ago, they launched their first range of smartwatches, and they didn't do well at all. And they got some feedback. The dial was not clear, that was reflecting in the sun, and you could not actually read the information. They launched it again about a year ago, and today it's the 5th largest wearable brand in the world. So that's the beauty of this opportunity. Second, of course, is the whole channel disruption. You started with horizontal e-commerce players. Globally, people are talking about D2C, the big wave which happened, and then the big wave which came down, and today D2C is not seen as a very attractive space. That's because D2C was very strictly interpreted as my own channel and my own website, and I'm doing everything direct to consumer. In India, that's not even required. We have a situation here where we have millions and billions of consumers, and we don't have enough brands. So it's probably the most unique economy in the world, which is such a large consumption opportunity with very few brands. I was sitting with one of my companies earlier this week in the Ayurveda space, and we were looking at our plans for India. They are a global brand trying to bring it into India now. And we couldn't count beyond the top 4 Ayurveda brands in the country. I mean, imagine for a country where Ayurveda is the origin, You don't have more than 4 or 5 brands that you can count on your fingers of what is available out here. So that's the beauty of this space, that there is so much of opportunity that you can find those white spaces and leverage them. And I'll talk about the challenges, of course, of that as well. So channel opportunity, from starting with e-commerce horizontals, then getting into verticals, then getting into your own websites. And now more and more we have quick commerce, we have the omni-channel opportunity. It's really about navigating that journey, which is the real opportunity or a challenge, rather than how do you or can you do it. So one of the things that we have learned at Fireside, and we are trying a lot of effort from our side to share some of these learnings. In fact, my partner published a blog, some of you may have seen it, on how to launch a D2C brand in India. And the idea is that there is a certain method to this madness. And if you can figure that out, then there is a lot of interesting possibilities that can open up. So that's really the story of this disruptive brands. I think today this is mainstream. This is here to stay. We have our portfolio of companies, which are about 30 of them, and we are only 5 years old, together contribute close to $2 billion in revenue and valued at maybe $5 or $6 billion. So this is happening, guys. And that has really been the most exciting opportunity for us. Interestingly, and I have coined a very, very boring term called D2C 2.0. So from challengers to disruptors, we don't even know what to call the next wave. So hopefully you guys can, share some thoughts with us. We believe that everything that we have done so far is going to get disrupted once again. And that's daunting, that's exciting, and that's also scary. What's happening on the product side, first of all, the lines between product, service, and solution is getting blurred. Technology and the digital infrastructure is enabling brands today to start with a conversation, to go into a product story. We have a company called Gynoveda, which is into women's menstrual health issues. And they have a community of women, and that number is over 100,000 now, called Circle of Sisterhood, who talk to each other about their problems and how to solve for them. So it's really a community that is propping itself up and talking about a subject which is not very easy to talk about in the Indian context. And then they have a range of products that they are able to offer. We have another company in the hair fall solution space, where the whole story is built around ability to consult with somebody online. It could be a chatbot or it could be a human person, to be able to expose a regime, which is a combination not only about some ointment or some oil you apply, but also about some vitamins and supplements you have to consume, and your whole entire diet that needs to happen. Because hair loss is a problem which starts with the gut and doesn't start with the hair. So those are the kind of interesting dynamics that are emerging, where the definition of what is a product, what is a service, what is a solution is getting completely blurred. Then, of course, this whole aspect of Web3 is becoming almost like all present. And to be honest, nobody fully understands. We have been doing some research on paper. So when I started Fireside 5 years ago, I got a couple of young partners so that we could have the contemporary context of performance marketing and online marketing and so on and so forth, because oldies like us were not born to this. That was a great experience. Last week we had our offsite where our youngest member, she's 22 years old, did a full 2-hour session with us on Web3 and metaverse and NFTs and streetwear and stuff that honestly I'd never even heard of, in a very colloquial sense. Of course, we have been following it very closely as a fund. So what is really happening is that today, if you want to launch a new brand, you have to start looking at, are you a product, are you a service, are you a solution? You have to start looking at, which part of me is virtual, which part of me is real, and where do the lines actually blur with each other. So today, the more you read, the more you're figuring out that this concept of metaverse or Web3 is going to become, a meaningful part of a brand strategy, or it could be because the Gen Zs, the millennials are also old now. So I'm sorry to say all of us are now in the same bracket of being a little behind what's happening in the market today. But the next generation, the 16-year-olds, the 20 years old, are going to define the spending power over the next decade. And they are the ones who are really here. The other aspect that I think India has not done enough of is really what we call deep science. How many brands, honestly here, can say that they have innovated on product in the fundamental sense, not in the recipe or not in the just the compositions or the formulations? I think that is probably the most interesting opportunity I feel if we can dominate that part of it, where we work with science, where we work with academia and create products which are disruptive at the science level, not just at the recipe level. So we have disrupted, obviously, the channel and the business models. We are disrupting the brand stories, but can we disrupt the product itself? I think that's the other interesting opportunity that we are looking at. And that takes us to the most interesting opportunity is, can we build global brands from India? And that is one of our dreams. My personal wish is that in the next 5 to 10 years, can we see the next Nike, the next Pepsi, the next, whatever the space that we are interested in, coming out of India and building global businesses. We have, like I mentioned, an Ayurveda company. We have companies based on high-end teas, based on Indian ethnic, solutions. But is there a story which can take us to global markets? And today, there is a possibility that it can happen because of the choices of channels and because of the access to these markets through digital medium. And we have seen that in several of our companies. At least a dozen of my companies are actually selling in some form or fashion in global markets. So that's another area which you should explore. I saw a stall outside, and this is not a paid plug, but do speak to the Amazon global sales guys outside. They do some phenomenal work in helping brands look at global markets in terms of how you should go and build that. So that's really the summary of my personal experience over the last 10 years, where we see the market going. One last comment before I end is the role of what we call value of good. Brands should not just be about doing well, but about doing good. And we have a huge program from Fireside now on this aspect of value of good, where we are trying to figure out how can we help not just our brands, but the ecosystem, all of you, in exploring areas that you can be more environment sensitive, you can be more driven by less use of plastic, driven by more sustainable solutions. Because that is no more a choice, that is almost a need of the hour. And I would urge all of you to think very deeply about what your brands are doing as far as doing good to the planet and doing good to the people around you is. So that's where I would stop. Just happy to be here and be among all of you. And if I do have some 5 minutes, then maybe we can take a few questions. I think there's a question there.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir. I'm a huge fan of yours. I keep seeing, a lot of your talks where you speak about how you build the brands along with the founders. So my question to you is that every time we see new brands coming up, in the lifestyle space, and the brands are getting flooded in the sense, every time we see if I have to buy a socks, if I have to buy a shoe, I have to buy a cloth, I have to go to multiple platforms to discover the best brand. So what do you see a space for a brand who is trying to consolidate these brands as a lifestyle solution and consolidating through a data-driven approach these brands on a single platform? And sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Sushil Kumar. I'm the co-founder of data-driven lifestyle solution brand called MPF Style Club. Thank you.
Sure. No, so I think the fundamental answer lies in what I already said. I think the complexity or the opportunity of different avenues of accessing consumers is really opening up significantly. So what used to be the Amazon, the Flipkarts, then the big baskets, now there are very deep vertical plays happening. So if you can find what is unique about a vertical play in the lifestyle space, is it the conversation, is it the community, is it the ability? Because, if I take, let's say, electronics as one area or automobiles as one area, there is a lot of community conversations that need to happen. People want to, people audiophiles, people are very, excited about their purchase, whatever research and the kind of conversations they are having. So if you can create something which is very deep in terms of the space that, like you said, lifestyle or whatever it is, then it becomes very interesting. And Nykaa did that beautifully with, coming in when there was enough and more happening in the horizontals and creating a vertical. First Cry has done that, Big Basket has done that. So I don't see any issue with the opportunity. I think the key difference is that the benefits of going to an Amazon or a larger e-commerce site is obviously the choices, just the familiarity and the whole service aspect of it. How do you break that is really the question. But I feel that the concept of community, content, and hopefully some of these Web3 elements can differentiate you from those guys. Kavalji.
Yeah, hi Kaval. I'm Kavaljeet, co-founder of a company called NetAmbit. We drive sales for the digital brands in India. So my question, Kaval, is that I get this kind of a conflicting views. I saw that you said tier 2 and 3 cities as one of the key drivers. And I heard from some of the founders themselves that, their brands are relatively have a higher pricing, the target segment is different, and also the value proposition is a little higher in the Maslow's hierarchy. So how do you see this tier 2 and 3 kind of fitting into the D2C brands in India?
Sure. So I think opportunity is extremely exciting, Kamal. So, for us, the Bharat opportunity is a big theme right now as an investment thesis. But the fundamentals of that are very different from what we are doing today in the classic urban, millennial, higher-end value proposition. So it's a going back to the drawing board situation. How do you figure out what is the right value proposition? Because their price is an important aspect of it. It's the unit price which is important. In the beverages space, because I was involved with Paperboat for so long, he finally had to launch a 10 rupee pack called Swing to be able to penetrate into that market. So it's not even about, value proposition, it's about a price point. Similarly, it's the size of the SKU. So should you be offering the same 100 ml? Should you be offering the same 50 ml? Again, going back to my levers days, when I started as a management trainee many, many years ago, we brought in the shampoo sachets. And that completely changed the way the entire shampoo market evolved. It grew 100x, not just 5x or 20x. So I think the question is, there is an opportunity because there is more disposable income. There is huge access. Payment systems are getting far easier now with UPI and others. There is a great opportunity for the e-commerce players to leverage and take you there. Logistics companies are coming in, everything, the infrastructure is, enabling you to reach that consumer. But going to them with the same product, which is being in success in the big markets, in the urban markets, may not be the answer. So if you're really serious about it, then I would say you have to almost redesign your business model for that market. And I am very, very confident that will happen. Again, Boat is a great example. Again, Aman is here. You can talk to him more details. They find huge business coming from small town India because they have price points and products which cater to that market. He was showing a watch yesterday, which was a $30 watch, 2,000 rupee smart watch, which does everything that my Apple Watch does. It's a fantastic proposition.
Good morning. I'm Satish from Brand Studio Lifestyle. We run a D2C website called getcatch.com. Just what you spoke about a moment ago, right? Value proposition and tier 2, tier 3. We're a fashion house of fashion brands, and that's a large part of our market, right? But one of the things that I'm concerned about is, like, a recent news report said if you're earning 25,000 rupees or more, you're the top 10% of our population, which leaves your market size in India at about 130 million. How do you expand the elasticity of this market? Because you remove like premium, you remove luxury, and then you're left with a much smaller subset, right? How do you make that market more elastic?
Sure. So again, it's not one shoe fit all. And the issue with the, let's say the previous generation of brands was they had no choice but to create one shoe fit all because they were dependent on physical distribution. So, you have to find the common denominator for everything. And that obviously then becomes very complex in terms of managing it. Today, you can create multiple different versions or multiple different stories. Again, if you look at brands like Good Glam, if you look at brands like Mamaearth or Honasa Marketing, which is a mother company, they are launching different brands for different markets. So, to me, the answer lies once again in being very focused because 100 million is not a number to sneeze at. But if you can get 500 million type of markets with very different proposition and find the leverage which is common, it could be your back end, it could be your sourcing, it could be your warehousing, it could be your logistics. And of course, the learning of how to launch a brand, again, using Mamaearth as an example, they took 3 years to hit 100 crores for Mamaearth as a brand because they were learning the game. They launched a brand called Dermaco, which they reached 100 crores in 1.5 years. So I think all of these are interesting leverage points. But we cannot create one brand which fits the entire market. I think that's the biggest learning for us. And again, it's an unlearning for us because, we used to build brands in the, Lever's times, which were exactly built on that. Saying, how can I build a 1,000 crore single brand? Now I'm saying that's not even the intent. You can build a few 200-300 crore, 400 crore brands which grow on their own natural way. But if you can have 10 brands, that makes you into a very interesting opportunity.
Good morning all. My name is Pradeep, a passionate leader at Farmers Fresh Zone. We are a D2C brand for fresh produce operating in farm to fork model. For a D2C brand, would like to know your thought on the importance of a brand ambassador and at what stage a D2C brand should think about onboarding a brand ambassador.
Onboarding?
A brand ambassador kind of.
Okay, sure. So, on the celebrity part, I think, again, it's an interesting learning for us. We have seen lots of celebrities being used in very different ways across different brands in our portfolio. But I would say that the foundation of the brand should not be a celebrity. The foundation of the brand should be the basics of what you're trying to offer the consumer and what the value proposition is. Because the celebrity can only enhance the message rather than become the message. So, for example, when Mamaearth got Shilpa Shetty as an ambassador, they had already identified exactly what they were all about. They were building mom communities. They were talking to mom about what is good for their child. They were going way beyond just the product. They were talking about, when the season changes, it starts getting cold, how should you look after your child, what are the remedies to follow, and so on and so forth. So, getting a brand ambassador into the fold is really exciting when you have a very clear proposition and consumer acceptance of what you're doing, rather than saying, I will start by, have a big name talking about it. Like, again, Boat has used 10 celebrities. So it's not even been one single celebrity. We just signed up with Anushka Sharma for Slurp Farm, which has again been a very, very positive reinforcement of the message rather than the message itself. So I would say we probably would avoid going celebrity right at the start. But once you have seen customer love, once you have seen customer, let's call it product market fit, acceptance of customers to your product, then enhancing it with a celebrity is probably a more logical time. Okay, sure. Great. Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. So now I request Ritu Maurya, the Editor-in-Chief, Entrepreneur and Retail Media, to kindly join us on dais to present a token of love to Mr. Kanwaljit. Thank you so much for gracing the occasion and making it here, sir. Thank you.